Hey, welcome to Loose Change. I'm Jim Evans. Thanks for joining us. Please observe the fine print. There is fine print. We have a really, really fine show for you, as we always do. Right, Greg? That's right. We have a great show for you. Beyond fine. Great guest. I'm really looking forward to that, so you want to hang tight for that. But as we do top of the program, we always check on some things that have been going on in the area. And not so good news for YSU students with another tuition increase, 2.4%. The breakdown is the 0.4% goes for capital improvements, and the 2% goes for a big gala going-away party for President Randy Dunn. How about that? Randy Dunn, president of YSU, done on the job after just 7 months. Yeah, okay, you know, he's doing what he has to do. But 7 months, come on. George Clooney sticks with his girlfriends longer than that. Are you kidding me? Speaking of big parties, people are still buzzing about the Academy Awards. Now, I caught a little bit of it. What an extravaganza. Specifically, the hairdos, the makeup, the gowns, and that's just on a lot of the men. Hey, he got an early start. Browns owner Jimmy Haslam gave up Joe Banner for Lent. How about that? They cleaned out the front office, Joe Banner, Mike Lombardi gone. And then right after that, a report came out that the Browns were trying to trade for a coach. 49ers Jim Harbaugh, trade for a coach. What a front office. I mean, the way things have gone, these guys are lucky to even fly coach. We'd like to fly out of winter into spring, and I know people really need to do that. One sure sign of that is baseball spring training. Everybody is getting set to go. Heck, even Paris Hilton has her 40-man roster all set, so just about there. But speaking of winter, I was checking a list recently of the snowiest colleges in the country. Snowiest colleges in the country over the winter. Number one was Rochester University in New York. They had well over 8 feet of snow, something like that. But as a lot of people in this region know, Ohio U is where you really get plowed. Hey, Ron Iarussi joins us next. It's Loose Change right here. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Armstrong Local Programming features our community like no one else. Meet your friends and neighbors at special events. Find the perfect pet. Celebrate our region's rich history or enjoy our natural wonders. Armstrong Local Programming is available online, on demand, and on your local Armstrong channel. Find the complete program schedule at ArmstrongOneWire.com. Local programming, exclusively from Armstrong. One Wire, infinite possibilities.
Welcome back to Loose Change. I'm Jim Evans, and joined right now by a gentleman that I've had the very, very good fortune to get to know and work with, and a gentleman I call my friend, and I do so with a lot of sincerity, and just a great, great guy, Ron Iarussi. Coach, thanks for being with us.
Well, thanks for having me, Jim. Look, I've been looking forward to this since we talked on the phone.
I didn't get the memo that it was Jack and Ann pie, but look how good this looks, so we'll have to go with this. But of course, you wear so many hats, different hats as a coach and school administrator, and we'll get into that. But you're from Struthers, and you obviously went to school and played ball there. Give us a little bio, a little background about yourself for those who don't know.
Just a typical Steel kid, if you will. Grew up in Struthers. Grandparents lived in Struthers, and of course, my mom went to Struthers, so we had to stay in Struthers growing up. Just my mom and my brother and I pretty much growing up, and had an opportunity to play some ball at Struthers, but we had a really good support system there, a lot of good coaches, a lot of good teachers, and a pretty strong family support. So ended up playing a little ball there, graduated, went on to college, wasn't sure about which direction I wanted to go into, tried a few different things, and had an opportunity. Pete Perrone, who was my head football coach at Struthers, offered me the chance to get back or to start a coaching career. Started out the freshman level, and boy, I took a step on that field, and I was hooked. Once I got to work with the kids, and I decided that's pretty much what I wanted to do. So went back to school, did some other things here and there, but ended up getting a teaching degree and taught social studies at the high school level at a bunch of different places. Had an opportunity to be a head football coach for a couple years over in Brookfield. Spent some time over at Warren Harding and coached over there with my good friend Gary Barber. And then I decided to take a little different path. Had some children come along the way, and thought, I really wanted. Took a look at those paychecks that I was bringing home, and that's not the only reason, obviously. But I decided to go in a different path. Went into administration, and went back to Struthers. Actually, that was my first administrative home. Sandy Tobacco was the superintendent there, and she gave me an opportunity to go in as an assistant principal. And from there, I furthered my education and went back to school, got my superintendent's license. Was fortunate enough to become the superintendent at Columbiana Village Schools over there with my good friend Bob Spate, who was the head football coach and a good friend of mine. Spent 6 years in Columbiana, and then got the opportunity to go back, or to come back to Mahoning County and be the superintendent of the Mahoning County Educational Service Center. So that's what I'm doing presently. Just finished up my doctorate at YSU, and so I'm actually graduating in May. But I finished all the requirements in the dissertation, so I've got that going for me. In the past couple of years, Kurt Kuntz got the football job at Struthers, which my children have. And my older son graduated from Struthers and played there. My youngest son is coming up through the ranks. He's in 8th grade. So Kurt asked me if I'd help him out over the last couple of years, which has been a real joy for me to get back a little bit. And so I'm helping him out with the offensive line. Yeah. Kurt's doing a great job over there. Got Struthers back in the playoffs and had a nice season last year. So that's it. That brings us up to date.
Well, I don't know how we can continue after all that. Let's go now. But yeah. Struthers, of course, is athletics and academic. It's a special, in the community, it's a special place.
I think it is. I mean, if you talk about diversity and all kinds of diversity, ethnic diversity, racial diversity, socioeconomic diversity, it's got the whole 9 yards. I mean, I grew up in that environment and chose to have my children grow up in that environment as well, because I think there's a lot of benefits there. I mean, we have a lot of great educational facilities, school districts around this area. But to me, Struthers has a little special place as well. Obviously, my parents, my mom graduating from there, and aunts and uncles, and that I think it is a special place. I'm proud to say I'm from there.
Well, I had the good fortune, the opportunity to student teach at Struthers from WKTL.
All right, the key to learning.
The first, I believe it was the first high school radio station in the country, if I'm not mistaken. And what a great, opportunity it was for students there at that time. You were a part of that.
I did. I had, it's kind of ironic because I did have an opportunity. I went through the program my junior and senior year. And it was great. I had my own radio show every night at 6:30 or 7 o'clock, when it wasn't football season. Yeah. And so I got to, DJ on the radio. And then of course, we had to, if you were in the program, you had to do your time, if you will, on the Saturday afternoon ethnic show. Yeah. So, had that opportunity there, which actually they still have in Struthers. The Italian hour, the Slovak hour, the polkas, and all those kinds of things. But it's kind of ironic because, after I graduated and through all I've done, I've also spent some time, in broadcasting, doing a little bit of TV when the Game of the Week first came out, and working with Rob Schmidt a little bit there, and then, the years we spent together on the radio. Also, I guess that was kind of a precursor, if you will, and I didn't even know it. So
there you are.
It was a lot of fun.
Did a fantastic job. Just slipped right in. Maybe we'll revisit that again sometime in the future. So that'd be really great. But we talk about athletics and how. Certainly in our area, how important football is, and how, in your experience, certainly at Struthers and playing for Coach Perone and working with him and all the other guys, but how football, of all the team sports, maybe more than others, really kind of prepares you for things, beyond.
Yeah, I've always thought that, and maybe it was ingrained in me by my coaches as well growing up, but. Even from the Little League aspect, some of the Little League coaches I have, I think, really football can really be considered a microcosm of life. I mean, you gotta, you have to learn how to deal with a lot of different situations, and obviously, the work ethic that goes into that, and the ability to be basically as good as you want to be in different positions. And facing adversity and learning how to deal with that, and 11 other guys or 10 other guys on your team that you have to learn to collaborate with and work with. I think there's a lot of life lessons in football, as there are in athletics in general.
Yes.
But there's something to be said when you strap on the helmet and that first time you get popped in the mouth. And you have to react to it. I think it teaches you a lot about yourself, teaches you a lot about life, and so that's part of the message I think that we as coaches now try to portray to the kids, that this is what you're going to be faced with in life, and how you deal with these situations pretty much determines possibly how you're going to handle your life situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And putting on the helmet, getting socked to the chop, that happens in the back room here oftentimes.
Does it?
Watch it. Great. So. It's about obviously learning to win and accept losing, because that's all part of the deal. And how have the kids changed involved in football from when you first started, if they have much at all?
Yeah, I hear that, and each generation talks about kids and how they've changed. I don't think kids have changed. I think the environments have changed.
Everybody says that.
Yeah, I mean it really is. It's what kids deal with growing up today is probably a little bit different than what they did, and it's all relative to exactly what they're dealing with. Obviously, kids have technology available to them now, and what they the access to not only each other. Kids have access to each other immediately, and the access to information, I think, also is a big difference. Parents, the family structure at home is certainly different. And I can tell you, even, I did come from a single parent home, but growing up, I was in the minority. Most of my friends that I grew up with came from, solid families that had two working parents or one working parent and, a mom or a dad or somebody at home. And today it's almost 50-50, I think, where kids come from, no matter what community. I think there's a different environment. I think that kids still are kids and still can be motivated and still be taught, lessons. I think that, how we go about that and, what we're teaching them is different. So I don't know if kids are different. I really think it's the environment and their surroundings that have changed.
Well, I think I know the answer to my next question, but what is the most gratifying thing for you about coaching?
Well, I'll tell you, I think that there's a lot of things that are gratifying about coaching. I mean, obviously now with a family and being around your own children and watching them have some success and go up through, pretty much the career that you've devoted your life to, and seeing, your own family members and your own kids come up through that and benefit and excel and do well, and that's exciting. But I think it's just a relationship. Overall, it's without a doubt the relationships that I've built over the years with kids. There's now, and again, you talk about access to communication. So you have a Facebook page and you Twitter and these things, and I can't tell you how many times former players will send me messages, whether it's either on Facebook or some other social media, avenue, and be able to communicate. And people have said, thanks, Coach. Thanks for, I thought of you this day, or something happened to him that made him think about something that may have happened along the way. I think that's probably the most gratifying part of coaching.
You mentioned, the relationships with the kids, and I know that carries over to the coaches, the guys you get a chance to work with.
There's no doubt about it. I've established some great friendships and even some rivalries through the past that you look back on now, and even some of those heated rivalries turn into great friendships after they're over. Where when it comes on Friday night, you knew there was a little extra incentive, based on some other coach or some other team, and that's a great part of this area, I think, as well. As there's so many of those instances that happen and occur around here, but there's so many. We're so blessed, I think, in this area, because we have so many good people and good coaches that really care about kids, that really try to do things the right way. and have devoted, most of their lives to doing what they do and do it very well.
And not just in football.
No,
across the board.
No, you're right. Yeah, no, and I'm talking, primarily about sports now, but the biggest part of my life now is involved in education, and we have great educators, great school districts, in this valley. If you look at how we compare across the state, we're right up there with a lot of the other, more high-profile counties, if you will, in academics and what we do, and that's a testament of the great teachers and administrators, that we have in this area.
Ron Iarussi, you can hang around, right?
I can hang around.
We have a few more things to talk about. We'll do that as we continue here on Loose Change. You better hang around. We'll be right back.
Bigger smiles, louder cheers, longer talks. Enjoy the possibilities more than ever with Armstrong. Armstrong delivers the latest in television, on-demand, multi-room PVR, high definition. Zoom Internet has the speed and reliability you need for all your devices. And it's all backed by local award-winning customer service to keep you connected. Enjoy the possibilities with Armstrong.
Welcome back to Loose Change. I'm Jim Evans, again joined by Ron Iarussi, and we're talking about football and education. And I know you as an educator translate that type of approach into coaching as a teacher as much as anything. Talk about that.
Yeah, you'll find that some of our best coaches in the area are also great teachers in the classroom, because really it does translate back and forth, coaching and teaching. And as an administrator, part of my job throughout the years was to evaluate and go in and try to be an instructional leader as well in the schools. And it's like anything else. I mean, this we're in an age of accountability now, where teachers actually they're actually evaluated based on how their students perform now, which to coaches is not a new concept.
Mm-hmm.
You ask any coach, how they're evaluated, and basically they're evaluated on wins and losses on Friday nights. And there's really not a lot of excuses either. So it doesn't matter, what your talent pool is or anything like that. You're expected to do a job, and people are pretty passionate about that. And so that really kind of translates back into what we're seeing in the classroom now, is that teachers, more and more are now being evaluated based on how well their students perform. Unfortunately, we have the whole standardized test issue and all those kinds of things, which probably is not the best measure of student achievement. It's the only measure we have right now, so that's what we use. Hopefully we'll change that in the future, that we'll find another method to assess student achievement that really reflects how well the classroom situation is going. But back to the point is that your coaches have to be able to communicate to kids effectively. They have to be able to motivate kids effectively, but they also have to have kids apply their knowledge. And that's the key now. Coaches do probably a better job of that of anybody. Is that you could imagine if, for example, the practice just consisted of a coach drawing a play up on the board and then just rolling out the ball on Friday night. It probably wouldn't work out that well. But the kids are responsible for taking that knowledge that they learn and then applying it on Friday night. And that's basically what we're trying to do in the classroom now too, is so that kids can take their knowledge and that they can apply it to some everyday life situation. And hopefully that prepares them for some careers that are available these days.
How did being a coach, and we'll talk a little more about your coaching thing here, but how did being a football coach help you as an educator and administrator, if it has?
Well, I think a couple things that certainly, I was a head coach before I became an administrator and a principal and a superintendent. Right. So that was really one of my first, other than being a leader in the classroom, my first opportunity to lead an organization came as a football coach. And so, all the organization and the everyday, I guess, operations of a program, which you're responsible for, you have to learn, how to manage your time. You have to learn how to be organized. But you also, the most important thing is you have to learn how to be an effective leader. not only do you have to motivate your kids, but you also have to be able to communicate with booster clubs and parents and the rest of the teaching staff and the administration all down the line. So I think that's really, that really helped prepare me for the leadership positions in administration. I think that carried over. And, the work ethic part of that as well. I mean, you look at area coaches and the amount of time that they spend, especially head coaches. Football season really is not just a September through October. Yeah. It's you got that 30-day period where you're not allowed to talk to the kids in most cases.
Well,
but and then and then it's 9 months of whether it's weight room, off-season conditioning, summer camps, season. If you're fortunate enough to play, make it to the playoffs, there's a serious work ethic that you need to be able to be willing to put forth in order to be in that position.
You touch on several things there, but I'm still going to ask the question that what was the biggest difference between being an assistant coach and head coach?
Well, assistant coach is a lot more fun. That's for sure. You ask any coach that says, the difference between being a head coach and when they, those assistants days, probably most of them will tell you they loved being an assistant coach. Mm-hmm. And again, and you can just imagine, when you're an assistant coach, you have one responsibility, and that's your position or your area and the kids that are involved in there. You're not dealing with booster clubs. You're not dealing with, you're not always dealing with parents. You're not dealing with a lot of the other things, fans, community, other than those. Although media. Right, exactly. And I mean that's part of being a head coach. But the best part about being an assistant is you get to put all that other stuff aside and concentrate on the kids. That's probably also the hardest thing about being a head coach is once you cross over to the dark side from being an assistant to the head coach, you give up a lot of those things that are so rewarding as an assistant, and you take on all those responsibilities, that you never really deal with. And in the first time you do it, it's somewhat overwhelming sometimes because you don't realize, and it's easy for the assistant coach to tell the head coach, we need to play this kid, not this kid, and put this play in and put, and do this, do that. You don't see all the other, the
people don't realize.
No, they have no idea. They have no idea.
But you had the opportunity to work with some other great head coaches, and you talked about Pete and Gary, and I know that was a great experience for you up at Harding. Talk about that.
Yeah, and that relationship actually started in Lowville. The first time, first time I ever ventured out of Struthers, because as Struthers kid, I didn't think there was any other communities other than Struthers.
It's right down the road.
It was. Well, so we, Gary Barber and I went to Youngstown State together. Of course, he played ball there, and I had a lot of friends that played ball, so we got to know each other pretty well. And he gets the job at Lowville, and I think Gary might have been 27 years old. I was about the same age, and so he asked me to help, and that was kind of when I was in my transition in school when I decided I wanted to be a teacher. So I started out with Gary in Lowville, and you got to remember, I mean, Struthers in the conference we played in, and we were just coming out of the Steel Valley into the Mahoning Valley Conference, and playing some pretty significant games with some pretty significant schools. And I'll never forget the second game of the year. Nothing against Southern Local, but we were on the bus ride. First of all, if you ever tried to travel to Southern Local.
I've never been there.
Well, I don't think you can get there from anywhere.
Yeah.
But
got a parachute.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember being on the bus and looking and never had been there and said, "Wow, I can't believe this is where I'm going." But and so we started out at Lowville, and I tell you the best thing about that is when you're in a program like that, and it's a great little community who really loves their step. I mean, the whole town comes to every game, that, but you have to do everything in those programs too. I remember us lining the practice field,
wow.
with because we didn't have the staff there in Lowville to be able to do that. So if you wanted a practice field line, you lined it. There was no call the AD up who basically had a half a period a day to work on some athletics. You didn't do any of that. You want new uniforms, you got to go out and raise the money, and you got to go pick them out and make sure you do it all. So that gives you a better appreciation coming up through. But I started that with Gary there then, and then spent some time over there at Brookfield with Gary, and he went over to Girard, got the job over there, and that's when I became the head coach at Brookfield. And then when he became the head coach at Warren Harding, I had an opportunity to go back and work with him. I always kind of wanted to coach at that level which was a phenomenal experience for me
You
to
had
be
some,
able to coach.
players
We had some
there.
great players. We saw some great players. Some great teams, great programs. That was great. So I spent most of my career as an assistant with Gary, but I spent a little time with Dallas Saunders over the years at Struthers. Great guy, great coach.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And most recently with Kurt Kuntz, who's the head coach at Struthers, and I'm basically there as a I guess a consultant.
Consultant.
Yeah, that's
Well,
that's right.
There's nothing wrong with being a consultant. And you guys had, again, you mentioned earlier on that you guys came off a great season last year, and Kurt and all you guys are doing a really great job there.
Yeah, it's nice to see. I think Kurt, really, I mean, we've had this group of kids coming up through has been pretty successful, growing up. And so we kind of expected that. But we've had other groups that have come up that have been successful at a younger age that just haven't performed quite as well as we thought they would on the field. I think Kurt just has the right mindset in regards to the accountability for the kids, what's demanded of them, but he also has that knack, I think, for instilling in them some confidence, some toughness, which is something that Struthers was always known for, and
Right.
I think is being once again recognized for is the type of kids they get are tough kids, and the brand of football that Kurt brings is a physical type of brand of football, which fits into what I guess that mantra is all about.
We only have, unfortunately, a little bit over a moment left, but we'll shift gears here real quick, and Mahoning County Educational Service Center. For those who might not be familiar with what that's all about, give us a description of what
it's without going into a dissertation about that in a long history. There used to be county boards of education, and they had some statutory type roles that they played with local school districts. In the early 90s, they basically had taken away a lot of those requirements, and we became Educational Service Center. So basically our organization is there to serve the districts in the county, and we provide them with special education services, professional development for teachers and administrators, as well as a number of other functions, early childhood and other programs that we do. We're very we're not very well known by most of the folks in the community. But we do. Our organization has over 400 employees, with about close to a $60 million overall budget. So we're a lot behind the scenes, but we do a lot for school districts in the valley.
Well, your plate is full, so to speak.
It is.
But that's great to hear, and I know you're doing positive things. Obviously, on the education, academic side, and on the athletic side as well, and. Again, hopefully we'll be able to have the chance to be in that broadcast booth before it's all said.
Yeah, I think so. I'm definitely looking forward to doing that again.
Great.
Okay.
Well, unfortunately, again, we're out of time, Ron, but great seeing you. Thanks so much for being on the show. Ron Iarussi, coach, administrator, great guy. Thanks so much again. We'll be back and get out of here. Loose change.
Enjoy the convenience of home phone service from Armstrong. Armstrong Telephone delivers reliability you can't get with a cell phone. All you're calling is one low monthly price, no confusing rate plan. Your favorite calling features are included. Check out the exclusive online management tools, set call forwarding, do not disturb, and more. You can even have your voicemail sent to your email. For great savings, bundle television, telephone, and internet. Armstrong, one wire, infinite possibilities.
That's going to do it for today's show. Thanks so much to Ron Iarussi and to Greg Roten. I'm Jim Evans. We'll catch you next time right here on Loose Change. Do I have to clean this up? I do? All right.